All right, so if you're a photographer trying to make it in the commercial world, there is one absolutely crucial shift you have to make. And listen, it's not about your gear, it's not even about your technique, it's all about your mindset. Today, we're going to break down how you go from thinking like an artist to thinking like an invaluable business partner who actually solves problems. Let's get into it.
You know, this whole conversation really kicks off with a question I saw on Reddit, and it just perfectly captures the challenge we're talking about. A photographer pointed out that their eye for composition and lighting was, well, totally different from what a client sees. And that disconnect, that's the bridge every single commercial photographer has to learn to cross. So, how do you do it?
Well, it all starts with understanding this fundamental gap. Look, you, the photographer, you're geeking out on composition, the perfect lighting, the right lens choice. But your client? They are focused on something else entirely. They need images that drive sales, that build up their brand image, and that create a real emotional connection with their customers. These are the two worlds, and your job is to bring them together.
And that brings us right to our first foundational shift. To really succeed, you have to completely reframe what your job is. It's not just about taking beautiful photos, it's about solving your client's business problems. Man, this quote from commercial photographer Claire Watson just says it all, doesn't it? The goal here isn't just your own self-expression. It's about providing a service. You're a creative problem solver, you're hired to look at a business need and then use your camera to create the solution.
I know, that can sound a little abstract, right? So let's make it real. Let's take a look at what this problem-solving mindset looks like out in the wild with a couple of actual examples.
Okay, first up, an international steel company. Now, their problem wasn't, hey, we need some pretty pictures. No way. The problem was a business challenge. They needed a unified global brand identity, and they wanted to show off the insane scale of their new facility. So what was the solution? A photographer who came in, matched the existing brand style for headshots perfectly, and used specific techniques to make those steel products look absolutely immense. See, that's not just art, that is a targeted business solution.
And this mindset, it's not just for giant corporations. Take this case with the Rock Trust, a nonprofit. So what was their problem? It was complexity. They do so many different things, right? How in the world do you show all of that visually? Well, the solution was a photographer who developed a strategic plan to capture all the different facets of their work, making sure every single image tied back to their core mission. The photographer basically became a visual storyteller for their cause.
Okay, so once you've got that problem solver hat on, the very next step is to start acting like a true business partner. And that means you've got to understand the framework of the commercial world, specifically how your work is valued and how it's sold.
And it all starts with this one core concept: copyright. This is non-negotiable. As the creator, you own your images, period. Clients aren't buying your photos from you. Think of it this way: they're renting them. They're paying you for a license to use them. Getting this one single point is the absolute foundation of every commercial deal you'll ever make.
So if you're not selling the photo itself, what are you selling? You are selling usage rights. That's the product. This is the license that defines everything: how the client can use the image, where they can use it, and for how long. This is the asset you're actually negotiating.
So, how do you figure out what that license is worth? Well, it's based on a few key factors you and the client negotiate. First, think about the time period. Is this for 1 year or is it in perpetuity? Then there's exclusivity. Can you license that same image to other people or is it exclusively for them? The geography matters a ton. Will it be seen just locally or are we talking nationally or even globally? And finally, the market. An image for a massive ad campaign is just going to be worth a lot more than one for a tiny company newsletter. It's simple. The more value and exposure the client gets, the higher the value of the license.
So when it's time to actually put together that quote, it needs to reflect all of this. Your final price should be built on 3 main pillars. First, you've got your production costs. That's all the hard expenses for the shoot. Second is your creative fee, which covers your time, your expertise, your overhead. And third, the licensing fee, which is based on all those usage rights we just talked about. This is how you price your work like a pro.
All right, we've covered being a problem solver and a business partner. The final, and honestly, the highest level of this mindset shift is to become a mind reader. To use deep empathy to anticipate your client's needs before they even know they have them.
And I love this quote from photographer Katie Mary, who just nails this idea. The ultimate service is being so connected to your client's goals that you are consistently, always a few steps ahead of them. This, right here, is what separates a good photographer from an absolutely indispensable one.
This all starts with proactive communication. Don't sit around and wait for the client to ask you questions. Set crystal clear expectations from day one. Give them a roadmap of the entire process so they know what's coming. Respond quickly to build trust. And hey, if you notice clients are always asking the same questions, get ahead of it and answer them before they even ask. This shows you're in control and that they are in very, very capable hands.
So how do you actually do that? How do you read their mind? Well, it really comes down to a few key practices. Be a great listener. Pay attention to the tiny details. Use questionnaires to uncover things they might not even think to tell you. Find small ways to surprise and delight them with extra value. And when problems pop up, because they will, treat them as a chance to show empathy and to collaborate. That's how you turn a simple transaction into a real partnership.
Of course, at the end of the day, one of the simplest ways to understand your client is just to ask. But instead of some generic feedback form, ask a really thoughtful question like this one. How can I make your experience even better? I promise you, the answers you get will give you incredible insights on how to improve, often in ways you would never have considered on your own.
Okay, so let's bring all this home. We've gone on a journey here, from seeing yourself as just an artist to really embracing the role of a strategic, empathetic business partner. And it all comes down to this simple idea. Commercial photography isn't just an art form. It's a business built on creative problem solving. Your creativity is the tool you use to hit your client's business goals.
You can really think of this whole shift as a pyramid. At the very base, the foundation, you are a problem solver, totally focused on the client's needs. The next level up, you're a business partner. You're protecting your work and you're pricing it like a pro. And at the very top, you're a mind reader, using empathy to create an experience they'll never forget. You master these 3 levels and you will thrive.
And that leaves us with one final, crucial question. It's the one you should be asking yourself before every project, every client meeting, and every single quote you send out. Are you selling beautiful photos, or are you selling business solutions? The answer to that question will define your entire career.